Welcome, Wolfpack fans. We are back with another episode of the Red and White Podcast. I'm Evan. Got my co-host Dustin here, and we got a good episode lined up for you this week. We'll talk Notre Dame, Hurricane, and have a special guest interview from Scott Roussel from FootballScoop.com. Should be pretty awesome. Thanks for listening. All right, here we go. Dustin, how did you enjoy the Hurricane game?
It was pretty shitty, to be honest. I got there, and there were some people in our group tailgating, and I got out there later than them, obviously, and stood around, and it wasn't so bad, and walked in, and I'm like, oh, this is kind of cool. It's a good story and all. That was over in like 10 minutes. The good story, it's fun stuff. Like, it was raining. It wasn't sprinkling. It was raining. And the wind blowing, and it's just, stings your face when it hits you. And about 10 minutes in the second quarter, I'm like, yeah, I'm going to go home. And that was that.
Well, I appreciate you and the other Wolfpack fans who made it out there, because I was pleasantly surprised to see maybe 2/3, 3/4 stadium full when that game kicked off. I thought that was unbelievable.
Yeah, I got a bone to pick with you, Mr. No Pass Out. And then you don't even go to the game.
Well, there's no chance I'm going to that game. I've sat through multiple Hurricane games. I was content sitting on my couch. I did think about it. I said, if the power goes out, I'll walk down to the stadium and I'll go to the game. It did not go out. I sat there and watched it. I was perfectly fine.
No, it was
brutal.
It wasn't even safe. I had my wife come pick me up, and we had trouble getting home already. I mean, one of the roads we take home, Old Wake Forest Road, if you're familiar with Raleigh. But, I mean, it wasn't even halftime of the game yet, or I guess it would have been halftime, and the road was already shut down because the bridge was gone with water covering it. I mean, it was
wow.
There was no need for that game to be played. And I understand that the forecast changed and it ended up being worse than they thought, but I mean, if Florida can cancel a game, we should have said we'd play it the next day or the day before or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad we played because it worked out in our favor, but I agree with you. It was kind of a weird situation for us to go ahead and put that game forward, and I guess nobody expected it to be as bad as it was down south here, Sanford, Fayetteville area got it real bad. So hopefully everybody's okay, but when it's calling for that sort of weather, I mean, I think that's just, it borders on irresponsibility to play that game.
That and just, I don't know, I'm not typically the high ground guy, but you got to have a little bit of respect for what's happening to the people around you,
Right.
Like, there were more important things than football that day, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I think it was just, nobody expected it to be as bad as it is, but yeah, it happened. It did work out in our favor, though. I think you look back at that game, and for some godforsaken reason, and I kept tweeting this out during the game, Brian Kelly decided to throw it 30, I think he threw 36 times.
What was it, like their first play from scrimmage, or at least first drive, where he just throws a deep ball and it's like 20 yards under and hits our defender. I don't even know who it was. Hit him in the chest and he dropped it. But at that point, I'm like, yeah, you can't throw the ball in this. But he didn't pick up on that.
I'm guessing it's because they couldn't run it, or they figured out they weren't going to run it on us. Now that's a credit to our defensive line and whatnot.
See, I disagree though, because they did run in the second half.
Yeah, they ran a little bit. I think at that point that might have been our defensive line being exhausted. But
yeah,
if if you're watching that game, they looked like they were slogging around, and everybody was kind of struggling at that point. So yeah, they couldn't do anything. But dropping back to pass, I thought that was just ridiculous. And then the sort of passes they were throwing, I couldn't believe it. I'm reading online on the Reddit thread and on Twitter, and the Notre Dame fans are just going crazy. Like, why are you throwing the ball? And I was like, well, I don't know, man. I feel bad for you. That's terrible. It was awful.
It goes back to something I know we talked about it a bit last year with Clemson. I think we were talking about how we're not going to necessarily have more talent, so to win we have to outcoach them. And Doran outcoached Kelly that day. I don't know that it would have been hard to. I mean, we all could run the ball, don't throw, but I mean he stuck to his grounds, and it didn't work out for him. I guess that.
Although the first play of the game, they tried a flea flicker.
It was awful, awful.
I mean, I appreciate the aggressiveness, maybe not the right timing. That was some play they had worked up long before the hurricane got there. Like, we're going to run this one regardless, and they stuck to it. I thought, my reaction was the same as everybody else's. Like, well, what did you just do? Kind of weird.
How often? I mean, you see a flea flicker fail a lot, but how often do you see it before the ball is even thrown?
I mean, probably quite a bit. I'm sure that pitch, and that was Finley's problem pretty much the whole game, is he kept looking away from the ball. If you watched him on TV and you watched the replays, he really struggled focusing on the ball. He was already, looking downfield, and when it's raining that hard, you've got to concentrate on catching it. I don't know. I think that was, and you could see it right there in that play. He did that same thing. He looked away too soon, dropped the ball. Did it a couple other times. Maybe not his best game, but I mean, a win's a win. I'm happy for it. I think it's a surprisingly a big win in our program's history. You just, you don't get those. We haven't had that many opportunities. Now, granted, Notre Dame's not great, but you're still beating Notre Dame. And I can guarantee that Dave Doran's walking around every high school he can saying, hey, we just beat Notre Dame. He's going to beat that drum till you can't hear it anymore.
Yeah, I mean, you got to get or take what you can out of it.
Yeah.
Like you say, they're down. And if we had played them in, 70-degree sunny weather, I don't know. But we didn't, so it is what it is.
Yeah, there's no telling if their offensive line was that bad or our defensive line was that good. I think our secondary actually played pretty well. There was plenty of pass breakups on maybe passes they might have completed. I think Tocho had one, Stevens had one, Niles Clark had a really good one. So they were playing. I think they played pretty well. And,
yeah.
I feel like I complain a lot, and so this is probably gonna call off as complaining, but it's maybe on the good side. Is that I feel like the weather is gonna take away from that. We actually played an okay game. There was some bumbling, and everybody's seen all the videos. But that's sort of selling us short a little bit, I think. I think both of our lines dominated. Our offensive line was fantastic. If Matt Days can run for a $120 something, they were doing work. And I think they lose a little credit that they shouldn't, just because the weather was so bad.
Yeah, you see that a lot with well, VT right now is getting the same kind of thing.
Right.
But I mean, if I picked an MVP, it would be the weather, But
Matt Days he was cutting them up.
Yeah, he got yardage, but he never put it in,
That's true. I don't know if that was his fault. They stopped. Didn't give it to him for whatever reason.
But yeah, win's win.
Yeah.
It's a storied program. I'll take it.
I think it's exactly what you come to expect. It's kind of the vision Dave Doran has for the program, where you have, I won't say mutters, but you have the hardworking, kind of in the trenches kind of guys and blue collar type. He always mentions blue collar type players. And I think that was kind of the difference here. Notre Dame's a little bit more, and you saw it in Chapel Hill too. Carolina's a little bit more finesse, throw the deep ball a lot, and they're not going to win those games. So that's why I asked to play Carolina in a monsoon too, and apparently that set off all the Virginia Tech fans thinking, that, hey, we would have beat them in a regular. Yeah, you might have beat them, but they were going to score when the wind's not blowing and it's not a hurricane outside. So I think we don't want to let this get to our heads, and I don't think they should either. I think that's going to be interesting. I'm happy with it though. It was a win. I want to give them due credit. They played pretty well.
Yeah, it's a win that should get us to a bowl game.
Yeah.
So we had to get one of the top tier ones, I think, and that was, as long as we do what we should, we at least win 6 now, so
Yeah.
it is
The
what it is.
schedule gets a little tougher, that's for sure. And that's a good segue into this week. We go down to Death Valley. We are 16-point dogs to Clemson.
Is it going to rain?
I hope so. I hope there's a monsoon right on top of Greenville, South Carolina, just for that game.
Yeah. That's I don't want to say that's the only chance we got, but that's going to be tough, man.
It is going to be tough. Clemson
That's
is
Louisville,
Yeah. Clemson is really good. They Matt Days was having a great game versus him last year until he got hurt, and that kind of changed the complexion of that game. But this year, I think they match up a little bit differently than us. I think their strength is the deep ball, and that's probably one of our weaknesses, is covering the deep ball. And with Mike Williams back for Clemson, I think that's going to be something that they're going to look to exploit, and exploit it a lot, and that concerns me.
Yeah, we're in the same kind of situation. I mean, same situation as Notre Dame if they had been, optimal weather type stuff. But
Yeah.
Watson's got 1,500 yards already, 18 touchdowns. Williams 432 receiving. It's the best team we'll play all year.
Yeah.
So I'd like to cover the spread. I guess that's a win for me.
Yeah, covering the spread's a huge win, I think. Just doing it in a manner where it's not a sloppy game. It's not the ECU game all over again where you have opportunities and you blow them. Right.
Right.
I'd be remiss if we didn't talk about Jalen McClendon coming in the Notre Dame game and then leading a successful drive until they pulled him out and put Finley in, and then kind of bumbled our way out of that one. What do you think about McClendon's playing time?
It was situational and it worked well. I don't know why you pull him when you get to the goal line until make them stop that before you change it up,
Right.
And I guess he had gained like 3 or something on the play before, so they figured that was enough. But I don't know. It was working. They were tired. He wasn't pitching it backwards 15 yards, I don't know. There was some stuff.
Yeah, it was kind of weird. I agree with you there. I'm not sure how to take it. You look back on it and you can think, why would you pull him out? Right? You kind of like, that's the frustrating part. Another decision where you're like, I don't know about that. Why don't you let the guy play? Even if he's just going to run it. That's all we were doing anyway. He was running all over him too.
Yeah. It was frustrating, I guess.
Yeah.
Because it was a good decision to try that, and then it worked. But then I don't know. I'll never understand going away from something that the other team can't really stop.
Yeah, dude, run it until they stop it.
Yeah.
Adjust until they stop that. I'm
that
on that
one
too.
That one pitch, I mean, took away that drive. We would have had 7 more.
Yeah, I'm not sure whose fault that was. Whether that was Gillespie or Finley there, but that was somebody's fault. It's a miscommunication, and it definitely cost us points.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know. I think we should also actually go back into the Notre Dame game, talking about Bradley Chubb had a great game. He would have even better if he didn't get a ridiculous. I forgot they called it a roughing penalty. It was actually unsportsmanlike conduct for pointing at an offensive lineman who jumped offside or false started or whatever you want to call it.
Right.
No, even like national guys, Mike Golick's tweeting that NC State got jobbed there. That was a terrible call. Like, this is the first time people are actually on our side on one of these things. I mean, it extended their drive, albeit they screwed it up shortly thereafter. But again, it's just one of those calls. You're like, come on, man, just get it right. It's not that hard of a call. He wasn't taunting anybody. He had an excellent game, 3.5 sacks. And then, it's slightly overshadowed by that nonsense.
Yeah, it's funny. We don't have a lot of national games. When we do national media, it's like, hey, they got screwed.
Right?
You know,
Yeah.
Golick probably doesn't see us play Boston College,
Yeah.
but you know, it's just a nice. It's nice to bring our story to the rest of the world. I guess is a good way to describe it.
Yeah. I do. Yeah, I guess that is. I guess that's perfect. That everybody can experience what we're dealing with here. I think we need to address the drainage situation on the field. That might be a problem
It's supposed to be so fancy though.
for an engineering turf management school. I
Yeah,
think they have some problems.
they need to go back to the mountain in the middle.
Tom O'Brien removed that, I believe. The
Yeah,
crown.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Because he
Go
didn't
back
want
to
to
that.
run uphill.
That always worked.
Yeah. That's the easiest solution, right?
Yeah.
That was crazy if you ever saw it from field level. I mean, it was a noticeable hill.
It was huge. Yeah.
It was crazy.
I mean, I'd been there and just worn down, I guess, so long that it was a little more than needed to
Yeah.
be, but there weren't exactly, puddles that the ref. We laughed in the stadium watching the refs walk around, and every step they took, you could see a pedal or a puddle popping up just from them walking normally. Like, oh, and these guys are trying to run and keep traction in that. Like,
Yeah.
that's. Mm.
It was crazy. Anyway, I'll keep jumping back and forth here. Clemson presents a whole new set of problems. I'm going to ask Scott Roussel what he thinks about that. Thinks about the state going forward and his perception of us and as a program. I think I know the answer to that, but it would be interesting to see an outsider's point of view. Clemson's tough though. I mean, you saw what they did, and granted, it was Louisville. They're not going to be as hyped for us. It's a noon game in Death Valley, so that's good for us. We've played better on the road, sans ECU, so who knows what can happen. I don't expect a win. I think I'm with you. I think keep it inside 16. It's probably a mental win there, and then don't lose by 60 to Louisville the following week.
Yeah, that's the tough one. It's just we were talking before we started recording. When have we ever had this?
Yeah.
A play in a number 3 and then a number 7. That's. I don't know stuff about. I'm not trying to act all historical, but I don't know a time when we've had to do that.
Right.
And that's a test. So.
Yeah.
I don't.
Go ahead.
I don't think the next 2 weeks are as important as the way we rebound from them more than likely going badly. We can't let these 2 games destroy the rest of the season. You know what I mean?
I think you're exactly right. It's going to be an emotional roller coaster. And I don't know, we're not necessarily good at handling that. But whether we play this game close or we get blown out, both of these games, any result really shouldn't be a surprise.
Yeah.
And I don't think you should kind of dictate what's going to happen the rest of the year based on either one of these results, which is it's hard for people to see, right? Kind of live in the moment sort of thing. It was the same thing same way we should have reacted with ECU. It's hard to judge based on that. But these 2 programs are really good. We've seen them do things that people, the beating Florida State by 40 or whatever it was, and then Clemson beating Louisville and Lamar Jackson being really good. And it's just not a great measuring stick of what the rest of the season entails for us because there's a lot of football left. BC, Syracuse, Carolina, Miami. They're all winnable. I mean, so we could go 9-3, losing, getting blown out in these 2 games, or you could go, what are we now, 4-1? You could go 4-8, 4-9, 4-8. Yeah. So I'm with you. You just don't know what's going to happen. Don't look too much into this game or don't look too much into the next game unless there's just some glaring deficiency.
Unless we get Rutgers.
Yeah. Oh,
then
God,
there's a problem.
Rutgers just purge everybody. I can't believe they lost 78-0.
They had so many recruits there too. That was the best part.
Recruits. I think that's like logistically, that's amazing. You can get 200 recruits a game, and then to basically not even get a first down.
Yeah.
I was listening.
Yeah. Well,
I was listening to Pat Forty and his podcast earlier, and they talked about how Rutgers is a proxy war between Ohio State and Michigan, who can beat them the most, who can beat them the worst. And then they went in that there's some satellite camp controversy where Harbaugh is going to have a satellite camp, and then Rutgers found out and threw up a camp the same day to have so recruits would have conflicts with them. And so there's a little bit of animosity there, and that was part of the reason why he went full throttle on them. I mean, they were up 27-0, and he went for 2. I mean,
that's just a Harbaugh move anyway.
It is. It's savage.
Yeah,
I love it. I love it. Just beat the piss out of somebody.
Yeah.
But yeah, don't get beat 78-0. I feel okay about that. We've played Louisville tough the last couple of years, so I feel okay about that game too. This one, it'll be interesting. I just don't, we don't want fans to get too worked up one way or the other.
I agree. There's not a lot to say. I mean,
yeah,
Clemson's one of those cream of the crop programs now. It's consistent year to year, so it's going to be the same thing every year, trying to do something with it.
Yeah. I was looking at my Twitter feed and keep seeing these things rolling across. I was trying to think of a good Donald Trump reference to get into here, but I just can't do it at the moment.
Man, that was that was something last night.
That was pretty entertaining. That was more entertaining than a football game, that's for sure. Anyway, I think let's go on to our locks of the week. I don't remember who you picked last week. Who'd you pick last week?
I took Tennessee +7, which ended up as a
what
push.
A game. That was
Dude, that hurt a little bit. Like, it was funny though, they were down 28-7, and I'm like, well, there's no way they're coming back,
Yeah.
But damn if they didn't.
Dude, I'm telling you. I was texting you during that game that the world's largest horseshoe is hanging up in Knoxville somewhere. I can't believe that they came back and then they took it to overtime. I stopped watching the game. I think they were lining up to kick, or A&M was lining up to kick, and I was like, all right, I'm going to go put my kid to bed and read some books. And I came back out, and you're texting me, and like I was reading my messages. I'm like, what the hell did I miss? The game was over already. And it had gone to overtime.
That kick.
Yeah.
God, that kick at the end of regulation, that was awful. I mean, absolutely terrible.
Yeah. Like they centered it and everything. I was like, they got this. This is over. Man,
it's that expert coaching from Butch. He iced him twice before that kick.
It's so stupid.
So,
I hate the icing. I think that's ridiculous.
Hey, I'll do it every time. If they miss, then it's justified.
I guess.
Because he came up and he was, you see him come up the first time and he's like, all right, ready for business. By the second time, like, he looked scared, honestly. Like, you could see a visual change in his face. And I don't know if it was that or what, but in result, they didn't make the kick. So
yeah, that was crazy. So your locked in come through, and I guess I'm 50-50 here because I picked ECU to cover theirs, but then I switched it when I thought their quarterback was hurt, but he wasn't hurt.
Yeah, you lost.
And so I'm going to take the L there.
I didn't get a win either. I have a push. So our locks, since we started this, my record is 0-1-1 and Evans is 0-2, so probably shouldn't listen to us ever.
No, this week is different, man. I'm starting this one. I got a good one.
We're actually going to try now. So
that's right.
What you got?
I'm going Louisville +34 or -34 versus Duke.
Yeah, it might be fair.
I think they put up 100. I think they're going to destroy.
Man, Duke beat Notre Dame though.
Yeah, I know. I want Duke to win. That makes us look better. Actually, I don't want Duke to win. I don't know why I want to win. I just don't think they cover 34. I think that's going to be an embarrassing game.
I'm going to go. Man, none of this is jumping out at me. I'm pretty intrigued by the South Alabama Arkansas State game, but I'm going to pass on that. I like Pitt -3 against Virginia.
Yeah, that seems like a good one too.
The last time I picked against Virginia, I lost, but uh, I don't see how they stop. I don't see how they keep it with the fluke. I guess we'll leave it at that.
How
So
they stop Matt Canada's
I might not make
offense.
your mortgage, but I might make your cable. Yeah, exactly, man. I mean, ugh, ugh.
Yeah.
I'll forever hate UVA from that. I don't remember what it was, like 27-0. Uh, Something awful like that. The TOB game is what I call it. The
Oh
one that
man. I don't.
ended his tenure.
Yeah. That game
Uh,
was. Oh man, that game was sad. It was. That's the only way I can describe it. Was sad. The crowd felt sad. Everything was sad. The outcome was sad.
Dude, it was awful.
Yeah.
Like, because after that, there was like a scrimmage basketball game at PNC.
Yeah.
So I go all excited that morning. I'm like, all right, sweet. Easy game against Virginia. Basketball after. I didn't even want to go to that basketball game, but I did. Like I was just so pissed off. I just wanted to go home and
Yeah.
drink some Mad Dog or something, but I went. Like that's one where you want to have a hangover to take away the pain of the loss.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's my uh while off. I will forever hate Virginia now.
I mean, I didn't really like them in the first place, so I can go with you in that one. I can give you that.
The Carolina of Virginia, basically.
That's right. They are the Carolina of Virginia. That's why we relate better to Virginia Tech fans.
Yeah. So
I will say we've been getting a bunch of emails and calls and whatnot from people. So keep them coming. Like that's really awesome. We love when you guys do that. Reach out to us any way you can, and we'll try to include you in next episode. Give us your thoughts. All that stuff. Obviously, we didn't record on site this week because might have been a little bit of a hurricane, might have some audio troubles. All that stuff. But keep it coming. Keep the input coming, people. I think it's awesome. I think it helps us and it helps everybody else. I think that's it. We're gonna wrap up. We have Scott Roussel join us from FootballScoop.com. I'm really excited about this interview. I love the coaching silly season. We talk about it a lot, and I think Scott provides some really good insight. For those who don't know, he's definitely a follow on Twitter at FootballScoop, and just listen to his insight. He knows what's going on in the back channels, and we talked about this quite a bit. So listen to his interview, and then let us know if you liked it, and I'll keep trying to get other guests along that lines to join us. But that's all I got. Dustin, you good?
if I don't know how to word it, but basically, if you had some kind of negative effect from the storm this week, I hope that good things come to you. Get your power back. Hopefully, you didn't lose too much, and hopefully, everybody stayed safe.
Yeah, that's a good point. Especially everybody down in the Fayetteville, Sandhills area. I know you guys had a lot of troubles, a lot of damage. They're still going on. So, our thoughts are with you. Hope you get through it.
All right, that's it.
All right, baby. Go Pack.
Go Pack.
All right, folks, I'm here with Scott Roussel from FootballScoop.com and at FootballScoop on Twitter. To me, it's one of the best reads and best follows in college football. Scott, thanks for taking your time to join us, our little part of the podcast world. Really appreciate it.
Oh, I'm happy to be on. I enjoy what you guys do.
We wanted to have you on. I recently heard you on the Football 4 podcast. I think it was around the time that Les Miles got fired from LSU, and you were talking about the coaching silly season. To me, it's always fascinating. The conventional wisdom is that a school will fire a coach, XYZ, just so you can get a head start on your coaching search. At least that's what most fans think. But I heard you talking about it. It's not really the reality. And it was a good point, and I want you to, if you could talk about the back channels that are always working. Can you explain that to our audience a little bit?
Yeah, I believe the reasons why you fire a coach early in the season is if there's an issue in the locker room. If you say we got great kids here, but they're just not being led properly, and this guy's got to go. He's part of the cancer. And we're going to give these kids an opportunity to have a great, the seniors are going to have a great final season, bring someone new in here, some fresh blood, fresh life, rejuvenate the entire program. or perhaps you do it if you feel like you have an amazing coach on staff, a number 2 or number 3 guy, and you want to give him a tryout. You do it in that case. But to do it to say this gives us an early head start on our search, that's just silly. That's ridiculous. Missouri, Gary Pinkel finds out that he's sick and tells the athletic director he's going to step down in October of last year, and they announced that to the world. Maybe it was September, and they announced it to the world. I want to say early, gosh, I forget the date, but early November perhaps. So Missouri, their athletic director knew at least 6 weeks before the end of the season, that they were doing a search, and he announced that time, we're going to start our search. We're going to find the best possible coach. And he almost didn't do any sit-down interviews until a couple weeks after the season ended, and then obviously winds up hiring Barry Odom from their staff. So, that's that whole gives us an opportunity to signal or any of that stuff. That's garbage. In a position like, obviously LSU is real, it's open, but if Texas were to open or any of the significant schools, it's not like their athletic director has to wait to call other agents. The guys they're hiring are represented. And you just call they talk to their agents all the time anyway. There's only 4 or 5, the top, the best of the best agents. They talk to them every month. So, just about what's the lay of the land, what's going on, about various contractual matters of somebody under contract, not under contract. It's ridiculous to think that we have to do this now to get out in front of things.
And there's no real benefit to a school like LSU doing that because they have the name, right? If, say, Texas does come open, just being first is not going to do anything for them. If Tom Herman's the guy for both of them, he's going to wait and hear both offers whenever they come open, right? I mean, it's not going to happen until the end of the season.
Absolutely. Yeah, it makes, Joe Oliva would say it now. He did this to give Orgeron an opportunity to prove himself. Now, I think the whole world knows that's not really why he did it, but that's the reason he would give you. We wanted to, we felt like was, a strong candidate, so we wanted to give him a shot and see what he could do. The reality is, and if you talk to the insiders at LSU, is they really wanted to do it last year, and their plan backfired. Oliva leaked it too early, and it came back to bite him. So, they were made to look really stupid with their handling of it last year. So he saw his opportunity. He took it knowing that or for fear of not being able to do it later in the season, if something were to turn around. Because LSU has all the talent in the world, it wasn't getting done. So he took a shot while he could. That's all this is.
I think that sets up perfectly for my next question. I think it's setting up to be a very busy off season. I think a lot of potential big jobs are going to be open. What happens in a situation like Texas? Like, what is that about with Charlie Strong? Does he need more time? Is it just a bad fit that wouldn't work? I mean, it seems like Texas should have the talent to win, and Charlie Strong didn't forget how to coach. I know NC State fans like to use that excuse a long time ago when Tom O'Brien didn't leave any talent for Dave Dorn. But Texas and Charlie Strong, they can't use that excuse, right?
I don't think anybody can really use that excuse in year 3, especially with Charlie has landed what are generally regarded as exceptionally strong recruiting classes. Came in last year. I don't follow recruiting super closely, but it was certainly a top 10 class. I think it was a top 5 class. Might have been higher than that. And he's playing some young kids, but Charlie's made a lot of, mistakes with his coaching staffs and coaching philosophies and execution of their game plans or implementation of their game plans even. I don't know exactly what the issue is there, but there's some issues. And, Texas boosters believe they can go out and get whoever they want. Might not be true, but they believe it. And it doesn't help when you have a guy in state like Tom Herman, who, it's kind of out there that that's one of his dream jobs, right down the road. And they're like, God, we could bring this guy in, anytime we want. And now he's just thriving at Houston. We got to go get this guy. So that hurts as well. If you didn't have that situation in state, I think Charlie would get another year. With this, not so sure. You also have a really, really challenging structural leadership issue with the athletics department. With Perrin being there, and he's not a long-term AD, never been an AD. It's just a weird situation. So it's just not classic. I don't know exactly what to tell you, but I think unless Troy does something significantly different, in their latter half of their season, that a change is coming.
Yeah, I don't think it surprises anybody. I'm wondering how often is a good head coach or a head coach really strong. He's considerably a good head coach. How do they get taken down by bad assistant hires? Is that pretty common, or is it the coach just gets it put in a system or a place where it's a bad fit, and that's what happens?
It's hard to speak in generalities because each thing is specific facts. But you say, okay, you really shouldn't rush Sean Watson, perhaps, if that's not the offense you wanted to run. But it's not like Sean has been the only change there. He's changing coordinators, it seems like every 6 months. So is it bigger than just the one bad hire? It just seems like there's been a lot of dysfunction at Texas specifically. Otherwise, although there's huge money in college football these days, it's not as easy to build a staff as you would think, regardless of the budget. There's always going to be that one or two guy who's a key guy, and you're going to, pay up for them, and you're going to be a little short with some of the other positions. So when you're hiring 9 full-time assistants plus a bunch of other people on staff, you're not always going to hit 9 home runs. So you got to find guys with no ego, the guys who are in it for the right reasons, who believe what you believe. Their core values are what your core values are. And as long as you got that, no egos, we can all work together. Just sometimes you have those egos, and then that throws off the dynamic.
Now, is Tom Herman in the best position of any second-year coach ever?
It's pretty impressive, isn't it, what he's done?
He's going to get paid.
Oh, there's no question about that. And he's a super intelligent guy, and he knows what he's doing, and knows he doesn't need to take unnecessary risks. There was a lot of discussion last year about how he really flirted with the South Carolina opening, and all along I was saying, absolutely not. He's not going to South Carolina. He's just not. He's in too good of a position to jump to that job, which is not an easy job to win at, from a recruiting standpoint, most importantly. He's in a great position. And, if Texas is that one that moves the needle for him, he's in a uber great position. You say that, and I try to think of who else in year 2 was like that. I can't come up with much. I'll tell you, a guy who had a lot of shine in year 2 was James Franklin at Vanderbilt. If you remember, I think they had won like 2 games for a couple of years before they hire him. He wins 6 his first year, wins 9 his second year, including I think 6 or 7 straight to end that second season. I think they might have beat NC State in
the bowl game, and his name was a hot name in Raleigh for a while there.
He was on fire. I mean, he was the hot name in college football. So you win 6 and win 9. Not the same as what Tom has done, but at Vanderbilt, fighting the SEC, it's that might be the only thing I can come up with. It was similar.
Outside of Herman and probably PJ Fleck at Western Michigan, who are some of the hot young coaches that might be getting interest this year from Power 5 jobs?
Okay, so I guess I would differentiate between current head coaches and current assistants. When you say young guys, my mind jumps to assistants. And so assistants that come to mind, Doug Meacham, who's offense coordinator at TCU, has, when I think through, all right, who's got a realistic shot? It's guys who have interviewed before. It's not a first time to get an interview. It's a guy who's been through it a couple of times. He's looked at jobs, turned down a couple of jobs where he felt like that's not the right one for me and my family. Doug Meacham fits that bill. A guy I think super highly of is Brent Venables. Clemson's defensive coordinator. I think he's just a fantastic coach. Another guy who's had opportunities, who has interviewed, who's said, this isn't the right one for me just yet. Some of the names that you maybe haven't really thought of, and maybe that's because they haven't had the real interviews yet for real jobs, but Dave Aranda is an outstanding coach. I think Mike Bloomgren at Stanford is an outstanding coach. I think Tony Elliott at Clemson is underlooked, doesn't receive the attention he perhaps deserves. You'll hear Jeff Collins because of the Florida connections, for some not Power 5 jobs, but for some other jobs. At the the sitting head coaches who might get a look up already. Baylor's an interesting one. Could that come back to Dino Babers or Philip Montgomery, who are former Art Browse guys? Both of them are awfully impressive young coaches. Who else is just a fantastic coach? Hasn't translated to wins yet, but Chad Morris is an outstanding football coach. Good person. Chad, young guy, bright offensive mind. He's one. There's plenty of other really good coaches out there, but those are some guys. Fleck, you mentioned. Fleck's just done an outstanding job. I don't know if abrasive is the right term, but he was just different, right? And he's done a lot of things differently. And so you're like, I don't know if I can jump on board with this guy yet. And then you watch him and you see how it works, and you see his staff buy in, his players buy in, the community rally behind him. I think the whole community was, they paused when he came in. He was so different than Bill Cubit. But it's just flat out working. So you got to be impressed by that. There's a lot of talented young guys. Some of them got swooped up this past year. Mm-hmm. DJ Durkin, Matt Campbell. Those guys are just quality football coaches. I think Blake Anderson's a great coach. Unfortunately, he's having a down year again in terms of wins and losses. But these are really good. These are the type of guys, you meet them and you say, yeah, I could see sending my son to play for him. That's who you want to have run your program.
I think folks around here, we follow Syracuse because they're in our division, are probably expecting Dino Babers to Baylor at some point after this year, whether he leaves after one season at Syracuse. But, yeah, I think that's kind of right in his wheelhouse. That's what he's looking for. And it's a better job.
Well, it would be an outstanding fit for him personally. It's just a question of how, I don't understand what's happening at Baylor. Some of the things they continue to do from a PR standpoint just makes you go, who is running that place? So given that, I just don't have any idea, who they're looking to hire, what they want to hire. Are they willing to bring in somebody from that tree, from the Browse tree, or are they not? I just don't know the answer to that. But if they are, Dino or Philip are the two, clear candidates.
Yeah, and I think they brought in Grobe to kind of, be the patchwork, but he's an excellent coach, and he's going to win, and he's going to present a lot of problems for a lot of people on certain committees that have to pick teams. So it's going to be interesting to see how that works out.
Yep.
You didn't mention Manny Diaz. He got fired from Texas a long time ago as a DC, kind of rebuilt his rep at Mississippi State. Now he's at Miami doing really, really well. He's a guy that was at NC State under Chuck Amato, so many people around here still kind of follow him, have an eye on him. Do you like his head coaching potential?
Oh, I think Manny's a guy, who hopefully is in the profession for life. He's got the charisma, he's got the smarts, he's got the X's and O's. He can recruit the players, their families, the fan base. He's the total package. So yes, definitely. Now, I don't know if Manny's opportunity to become a head coach is a year from now, 2 years from now, or 6 years from now, but it's coming. And it's just going to take that right opportunity to present itself. I think he's, there's some guys who just kind of geographically make more sense in certain parts of the country rather than others. And I think of Manny probably not significantly further north than, say, Raleigh, not much further west past Austin. He's kind of in that southeastern, quadrant of the country. So you got to wait for the right one to open, and he might be a guy who looks at a group of five opportunity to get his first one because he is a head coach. He's going to get there, and it's hard to sit and wait for a Power Five one because they just don't come open that often. And even if the perfect one comes open, you just don't know that you're going to get it. So it's a huge risk to sit and wait. But boy, he's done a good job everywhere. I know the thing at Texas just didn't work for whatever reason, but I think, man, he's an outstanding young football coach and is doing a great job at Miami right now.
I think that's kind of the general consensus by our fan base because we pay attention to guys like him who have been here before.
Yeah.
That question is kind of out there, and I know there's a lot of kind of variables in play here, but what type of program would take a chance on Art Briles right now?
A program that values winning, really high on their pecking order of things they value. It would take a program who has a very strong athletic director. For example, LSU is open, and let's just say hypothetically, if Auburn were to open as well, LSU is not perceived to have a very strong athletic director, and Joe Oliva, has there are a lot of other people who are in his ear who are helping him make decisions, let's say. And you have the president of the university, and you have their board, which is fairly large and changes from time to time who's on that board, and the stroke of influence. And then you have Tiger Athletic Foundation, who has their own influence. So there's a lot there. Over at Auburn, it's Jay Jacobs, right? He's making the decision. So a place like Auburn could do it. A place like LSU probably can't do it. If that makes any sense to you. I don't know if that answers your question, but that's how I see the world.
Yeah, I think just it's kind of polarizing. People, you ask somebody about it, and they're like, "Oh, I'd love to take them because they want to win," but the other half of it is, what happened at Baylor and
exactly
under his eyes.
And none of us know what happened there. And it would be, you could answer this question better if any of us actually knew what really happened there, and I don't know that we ever really will. The other thing about Art specifically is, like I said with Manny, Art geographically just works better in Texas, right, or near East Texas. He needs to be able to recruit East Texas. That's what he does. And you win with players. So something in or near East Texas would be best fit for him for sure.
Another polarizing name that gets thrown around a lot anytime any potential job gets open is Lane Kiffin. He's got a questionable head coaching track record.
Mm-hmm.
Would you take a chance on him for another Power 5 job? Think he's kind of learned under Saban, or is he still who he is?
Well, I'll give you my personal interactions with Lane, and then I'll tell you what I think the most important factor, well, two most important factors are. When I visit with Lane in person, he is as polite, respectful, charming sounds like a weird term, but he's like, man, he can win over everyone in the room. He's really good in person. So that makes me think, yes. But the two more important things are that he's got Saban's vote of confidence and he's got Jimmy Sexton working for him. And you just can't. It's hard for me to oversell how important that is. Jimmy can overcome some trepidation, some hesitation amongst athletic directors. He can really sell. He's fantastic at it. And having Coach Saban's, nod, seal of approval is very powerful, influential these days as well. So yeah, Lane's going to be a head coach. I just don't know where. I also think, Lane Kiffin said to me years ago, so back when he was head coach at USC, that the NFL is the ultimate prize, right? Being a head coach in the NFL again is important to him in his career, I think. So I don't think you have to restrict Lane's career path to college football, whereas some guys just love college football and like they'd rather do that regardless of offers. Lane is not that guy. So, he's going to look at everything that's out there. He looked at the 49ers opportunity this last time it came open as the offensive coordinator in that case. So, we'll see. I got in trouble with Saban for saying this last year about him. Last year my bold prediction right before the season was that would be Nick's last season there, and obviously that was wrong. But that Coach Saban was not pleased with me for making that public. I would say the same thing about Lane though this year. I think they just redid Lane's contract not all that long ago. Within the past couple of months, and it only runs through February. I think that's a pretty decent tell. There's a pretty good shot he's somewhere else next year, either in college or in the pros.
This is kind of back to our earlier point about Texas. What are the odds, just 1 out of 100, that Nick Saban would ever leave Alabama to go to Texas?
See, now you're really trying to get me in trouble. Okay, so it's not 0 or 1. I mean, there are not many that Nick would leave in college to go be the coach of, would even consider. I would think Notre Dame and Texas are on that list that he would actually even listen to. Nick is, he's like a lot of Americans. He is partially motivated by money, although he's got plenty. It's still something he listens to. He's aware of his legacy for his family, both in terms of wins and losses at Alabama, national championship at LSU, et cetera. But the financial legacy he leaves for his extended family is important to him as well. He does have a not inconsequential ownership in some area businesses in Alabama, including a Mercedes-Benz dealership. But he's got some business interests elsewhere as well. So, yeah, from 1 to 100, I don't know what the answer is, but I think it's one he would at least listen to.
That's wild. I just, you have it rolling at Alabama, and just makes me like, why would you do that? But
when I say he would listen, I think he would explain that was his agent listening.
Of course,
of course, his agent's going to listen.
Yeah,
Jim Sexton's going to call him and listen.
Yeah, they have a big checkbook, so I guess that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, you listen, right?
Right.
You never know. So let me give you a perfect example. I've owned FootballScoop since 2008. In 2007, and for the 8 years before that, I worked for a Fortune 500 company. I was buying companies for them. And we attempted to buy a company. And I won't even explain. I won't get into too big of details. But the bankers who were on the other side were trying to tell us it's worth about $1.6 billion, $1.7 billion, $1.8 billion, something like that. We bid $1.6 billion for this company. The winning bidders both came in around $2 billion, and they basically played them off of each other over the course of like 3 weeks, and they raised their bids from $2 billion to $2.1 to $2.2 to $2.4 to $2.6 to $3 billion to $3.5 to $4 to $4.5 to $5 billion. They sold this company for $5 billion that probably wasn't worth $2 billion. So you never know if big oil guy is going to go to Nick Saban and say, hey, coach, how about 10? And Jimmy Sexton says, I mean, we can't do it for 10. How about 12? 12's interesting, but I think if you did 15, he's like, all right, 15. And Jimmy comes out and goes, God, I talked to Nick. He says he thinks 20. Got 20. It's 20, dude. So, I mean, you never know what's going to happen in these things. I mean, that sounds ridiculous, but yeah, things happen. Some company paid $5 billion for a company that wasn't worth $2 billion. Yeah, it happens.
And it's Texas, so I think anything can happen.
Amen.
That's great. Well, I want to wrap up with a few NC State questions before our listeners will just skewer me for not asking these things.
Yeah, okay.
How is the NC State job viewed by coaching circles and areas outside of Raleigh?
So it's got all the right attributes, right? In terms of the university, the profile, the city, the facilities, the ability to recruit, the ability to win championships. I guess the the pause that I see perhaps might be with athletics administration. Perhaps not wouldn't be graded as an A from outsiders. But I mean, Raleigh is just an outstanding city, right? Significantly large university. The facilities look fantastic. It's a very nice building. The weight room is sufficient, not amazing. It's a little detached from the rest of campus, which, it's not the biggest thing in the world. As I'm thinking back through, I don't think over there they have full dining capabilities, right? Or they do it upstairs.
I think they do it now. I think
I think
that changed this past season or two.
Yeah, it's upstairs. That's right. I mean, it's kind of all set up in terms of it's set up to win. There's a lot of good football in state now, which is good and bad. Obviously, proof that you can win. You just need somebody who can really recruit regionally. Recruit the driving radius, the 5-hour drive, 6-hour drive, where families are really super comfortable letting their kids go that far. It's a place you should win. It just is.
And I think that's the frustrating part for state fans. Over the history of time. The last time we put this on our last episode, the last time NC State has a coach that hasn't retired or been fired was 1989. And that's just not good. I mean, there's a lot of things wrong with that, and that kind of indicates a lot of different problems. There's some frustration in Raleigh where people just want to win. Our fans show up in a hurricane. It was 3/4 full. It's ridiculous. So that's always curious how people see on the outside. I think there a lot of frustration with the way State lost to East Carolina this year.
Yep.
I know, our schedule. Beginning of the year, people were thinking 6-6, it's fine, and then we come out, play pretty well, look pretty good, and then you lose to ECU. But it's not just how they lost, or not just losing, but it's how they lost. It was sloppy. It's kind of a missed opportunity. It's kind of defined Dave Dorn's early years. Now, that might have subsided after beating Notre Dame, even though they're not very good. But how is Dave Dorn viewed by people outside the ACC?
So, I'll tell you, heading into the season, I think there was some cause for concern there. And then, the East Carolina loss was pure like, oh, gosh, this thing could fall apart. Now, it seems like they've held it together pretty well. But I haven't looked at the schedule, but I think the schedule gets a little bit harder right here, right? We got What do we have? Clemson and somebody coming up?
Clemson at Louisville.
Just for fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fun. So here's the good news, right? Is a win, in either of those two would be huge for the program. Won't be favored in either, so we'll see. How is Dave Dorn? Dave did a great job at NIU, very wisely, parlayed that into a wonderful opportunity for he and his family. And it's okay, we've done okay. We need to improve. So the question is, this is the year. Do we see improvement or not? And East Carolina loss hurt. It stung. The response so far has been good. That's huge to beat Notre Dame. I mean, it's just, regardless of the weather, it's a win over Notre Dame. And regardless of how good or, opposite Notre Dame is right now. So we'll see, check back in 3 weeks, 4 weeks. And it's reality. And he understands that. It's reality. We gotta win.
I think the frustration has been, the off season. I heard there's always rumors about fractures in the coaching staff, and then they got rid of Matt Cannon. He goes to Pittsburgh. They bring in Drinkwitz from Boise State, who people have been very satisfied with. He's called a pretty good game. There's very little complaining, which is kind of odd for us. The complaining has been focused on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah,
we have a defensive line with, depending on your service, multiple 5 stars, couple 4 stars, but just hasn't been that improvement, mostly from the backside of the field, the secondary. And I think the frustration is more on Huxtable and Dave Dorn not doing anything about the scheme and whatnot there.
Yeah, the whole Matt Canada thing leaving was puzzling. And I still don't really have a good feel for what really happened there. So, again, we're all talking around it, and Dave knows it, and he's just got to win. And he knows that. And I cheer for guys to win. So, so we got these two, which are real hard. And then we got, is it BC after that?
Yeah, there's a lot of football left. We have Clemson, Louisville, BC, Syracuse, Florida State, Miami, and Carolina.
Okay. So, Clemson, Louisville, BC, Syracuse. So looking at those four, if you came out of it 3-1, you'd be thrilled, right?
Absolutely.
If you come out of it 1-3, it's really bad.
Yeah.
So, it's real life. We got to wait and see how it plays out, and just keep pulling for them.
Yeah, I think it's what we try to keep telling state fans is that there's a lot of football left. I mean, they very well could be 9-3 at the end of the year. They could be, 4-8. We kind of just don't know yet until we probably learn a little bit more when we go down to Clemson and see at least how they compete. Because that Clemson team's really good.
And if I or anybody else knew exactly how it was going to play out, we'd make a lot of money in Vegas. But
That's right.
Yep.
Well, Scott, I appreciate you taking your time and joining us here. Thanks
pleasure.
as always.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Scott.